Me on the Zoom line. Martin, always great to see you. I guess the circumstance, again, rather unfortunate, but still, we must have these very serious discussions and more so bring forward the recommendations. And I know your voice is indeed one that is strong and influential there in Tobago. Martin, good morning. Great to see you.
Yeah. Hi, good morning to you, Jason, and good morning to all your viewers on CNC3, and good morning, Trinidad, and a very special good morning to Tobago.
I'm seeing the Chief Sec says radical and serious action. It's what he thinks is required. That's the requirement now from the TTPS to treat with what is clearly a historic year in Tobago. 19 murders. The murder of Dolly Boss at Argyle Waterfall took the toll now to 19. The bloodiest year ever on history. I guess recorded history. I mean, back in the day, obviously, we weren't taking numbers. I know, pre-colonial times and pre-colonial times, probably the numbers would have been more in that historical journey, but we're talking here modern times. We were in uncharted waters. Do you think this call for radical action, for serious action is the right call from the Chief Sec? He says, talk done. He wants action.
Well, I mean, I would have thought we had actually passed to that point some time ago, because when we had reached the very chilling statistic, Jason, where I think the Sunday Guardian in an editorial had, reported that, at a point earlier this year, you had the murder rate in Tobago on a per capita basis actually being higher than Trinidad. If that wasn't enough to make Tobagonians stop and give pause to begin to wonder what on earth is happening, then I don't know what would. Because, now with 19 murders, if you look at it, out of a population of, say, roughly 60,000 persons, if we have 19 murders for the year, and you compare this statistic nationally with respect to Trinidad and the number of murders in Trinidad for the year, Tobago is actually a more murderous place for the year 2024 than Trinidad. That alone ought to, make Tobagonians want to wake up and shake up. Because, the reality is that this scenario is, we are approaching, Jason, what Malcolm Gladwell, the author Malcolm Gladwell, in his book, The Tipping Point, we are approaching the tipping point here. And what he says is that, there's a tide in the course of events where you reach a point where it's like the point of no return. And you change the course of things inexorably. And I think Tobago is at the edge of that precipice where if we do not stop it now, so the words of the Chief Secretary resonate, and in fact, if there could be more forceful language used, we need to use it, because we need to recognize the crisis that Tobago is plunging into if it ever, goes over the edge of that precipice.
So the owners really, the call really is for fellow Tobagonians to really stand up, because you would have said to me a couple of weeks ago that lots of the criminality, it's homegrown. There are many who would have believed it's Trinis who are going across there to, and I'm sure that is a part of the reality, but you said that a lot of it is homegrown. So if it's homegrown, it means that some of these with criminal intent are being given safe haven by family members and the community. So I guess people need to step up.
That's right. That's right. And, that's why, as a director of Crime Stoppers, I always urge members of the public, if it is that you feel that there isn't that trust in the police service, then call the Crime Stoppers number, 800-TIPS. It is safe, it is secure, it is anonymous, and you have the opportunity to also earn a reward for the information you give. All right. It's a very, very secure method. It's been used internationally. We've implemented the program in Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, this year is our 25th anniversary in Trinidad and Tobago, and it works, Jason. All you get is an ID number when you call in with your information. There's no caller ID. There's nothing at all that could identify who is calling in. So it's safe for you to call in with that information. You will never be identified, right? And with that reference number that you get when you call in with your information, if you want to follow up on your tip, when you call back, all you do is give that reference number. Even if you have to get a reward, when you go to the bank, we have a relationship with Scotiabank. You just go, you give that same reference number, and you collect your reward. You don't even have to produce ID to collect the reward. That's how secure the system is. So, I urge Tobagonians to use the number, use the 800 tips if it is that they feel that, look, they don't want to go directly to the police for fear of being identified, for, lack of trust in the TTPS. Let's use what is available to try and give that information so we can play our part to try and stem this bloodletting that is taking place on the streets of Tobago.
Well, I'm seeing that Senior Soup Kirk and ACP Hazel would have mentioned yesterday to the citizens, the brothers and sisters in Tobago, not to panic. They'll take control. And of course, that comes on the heel of the Chief Sec's call to be radical and serious. But we saw just with the licensing exercise recently, they went in a bit serious. They went in radical. People were inconvenienced. And many in Tobago, they were quite upset, so much so, I saw last week, Martin, a Obia man, a self-proclaimed Obia man, on the news with bison, croton in hand, beating the ground, saying that he's going to bring the darkness, right? He's a science man. So I'm wondering, do we really want to go radical and go serious? Could Tobago handle that kind of approach if the officers really put their foot down?
Yeah, you see, Jason, we have to disaggregate the scenario in the sense that there's nothing wrong with licensing and transport officers doing their job. I think part of the challenge that we've faced is where you see the TTPS piggybacking on that and then trying to say, well, look, this is an anti-crime initiative. I think that's where the public begins to draw the line to say, well, hey, listen, seriously, you are inconveniencing law-abiding citizens who are just simply trying to get to and from their jobs or, to and from, classes or to the doctor, the hospital, wherever, and you are calling this your big anti-crime initiative while murder and mayhem continues, to, run amok on the island. Why don't you go after the murderers? We had a quadruple murder in Tobago. You see, so, I think that's where the challenge comes in. And then I think it's exacerbated when the TTPS officers then say, well, look, they are going to launch a manhunt for this alleged Obia man. So in other words, you have resources to go and look for an Obia man, to arrest and lock up the Obia man, so to speak, but you are not locking up any of the murderers. So the public must look at that and begin to wonder, well, hey, listen, what's your focus? What's your intent? So therefore, when they come on the television and they try to give the assurances to the public, well, look, they are in control, don't panic. The thing is, it's not mirrored by your actions, it's not mirrored by your results. That's where I think there's a dichotomy between their words and their actions.
I go back to a couple of conversations, and you've said it so many times here on the program. Port of entry, the fact that you said to me, the reality is, I haven't been on the boat in a long time, but what you told me, and what many would have mentioned to more or less confirm what you said on the program, blows my mind that someone could drive on the boat, the ferry. Yes, I'm sure there are random checks, but we're talking here, every vehicle that's going there should be due diligence. And I'm thinking here, how are the guns, these high-powered weapons, how's the weaponry getting into Tobago? And I think there needs to be serious consideration when we consider the movement of people via the seaport and the airport.
Yes, and that's what I keep saying. You need the vehicle scanners, because it's palpably absurd that you are scanning an individual, one man walking on with a knapsack and a laptop and a briefcase. You're scanning him, you're putting him through a metal detector to see if he's carrying guns or whatever. But yet still, a vehicle, a van, you could drive on with a van load of guns, and it's just a random cursory search, open your trunk, let me see, they poke around for a minute, and then they say, all right, okay, you move on. I mean, come on, it just doesn't make any sense, because when you think of it, the airport is not somewhere that you can say any major transshipment of, any large amount of illegal guns and ammunition could be coming, because the Airports Authority, they have their scenario pretty well, they run a pretty tight ship, right? But on the ferry, where you have the mass movement of passengers, and let's remember, Jason, the majority of visitors to Tobago come via the ferry. It's not via the aircraft, when you have an aircraft that can take 60 people, and you have the ferry that in one sailing can take up to 800 people, just think of the numbers, right? And the ferry is running twice per day, So the thing is, that's where you have your mass movement of people. I've also said, even in terms of individuals who are on the ferry, the TTPS needs to have undercover officers on every sailing of the ferry. You are supposed to have your list of wanted persons with outstanding warrants, etc. And your undercover officers are there on the ferry. They're walking around through the crowd, in plain clothes. They're not identifying themselves, but they're looking, they're scanning, they're observing. They have their list, they have their pictures, they check in. So therefore, if they see persons who are known individuals, then when the ferry reaches the port, you just pull these individuals aside and have a quiet word with them. And if you need to arrest them, if there's a warrant, then you do so. So therefore, when you telling me that, well, it's Trinidad gang members coming and you could identify, how many gang members. And so, okay, good. What is the TTPS doing with that information? That's my question, because they are always quick to tell you, well, it's gang related and this one is a member of this gang and it's a reprisal killing because they are against that other gang member. So, okay, if you know all of this, then you ought to know, when did these gang members from Trinidad come to Tobago, which boat sailing, which, aircraft flight they were on, it's easy to check the passenger manifest for the aircraft. If you know these people, they have to use their names, their IDs, etc. to travel. Come on, let us use intelligence to do the police work, because, otherwise it begins to make it look, Jason, that the expression police intelligence begins more and more to look like an oxymoron.
Yeah, I want to thank you as always, Martin, because intelligence-driven policing, that is the future. That is where we're supposed to go. And that's what's been mentioned a lot of times in the press conference when we hear the top brass from the TTPS speak. So
and
I guess
sometimes it seems that the only thing missing from that phrase is the intelligence.
Yeah, I guess it's to really implement it. Martin, I want to thank you, as always, giving perspective, peeling back the layers. And I really hope that, this number remains at 19. I don't want to see Tobago going into the 20s and 30s, 40s.
Exactly.
It's going to be a sad day. We don't want that for Tobago at all. Martin, all the best, man. Thanks for touching base.
Always a pleasure. Have a great morning. Thank you.
Definitely. Martin George, the Tobago Business Chamber Chairman, touching base with us for Tobago Talks. Up next, we get a chance